Hey there everyone, and welcome to another astrology video. In today's video, I'd love to share a few thoughts and ideas, very Mercury Jupiter, about Mercury and Jupiter, who together make 3 oppositions over the course of the next month. And that happens across the signs of Libra and Aries. So Mercury is in Libra and Jupiter is in Aries. So there's a real sort of reflecting on relationships quality to this particular transit. And I'll love to break down a few of those ideas with you in this video today. Before I do that, though, I would love to just spend a minute to give a quick shout out that the WellBeing Astrology Guide of 2023, that's the cover, is now available. I spotted it in the shops here this week. If you've not seen this magazine before, it is quite a thick bookazine, as we call it, and we have astrologers from all over the globe that write feature pieces for us. So in this edition, we have articles from Wade Caves, Kelly Surtees, Gary Caton, Drew Levanti, Alicia Youssef, Alex Trenoweth, plus many more. We've got a great crop of astrologers here for 2023. And it also features the annual horoscopes written by me. So this is available. You can get a digital download of it if you are outside of Australia. If you're in Australia, you can get it at your news agency, Coles, Woolies, places like that. If you are not in Australia and you have your heart set on getting a hard copy, it is beautiful. I highly recommend it. I'll probably, in the next few days, get a post up on my website where you can arrange that. Because the publisher doesn't send them out internationally, I can do that. So I just need to know what to do in terms of who wants one and who doesn't. Okie doke. So trying to organize that around Mercury retrograde may provide a challenge for me. But anyway, that's another topic. So let's break down a little bit about this Mercury Jupiter piece that happens throughout September and into October as well. So let's start with the dates and the details. 3 oppositions happen, the first which we have already experienced. As of recording this, I'm recording this on Sunday, the 4th of September. So we have had that feature across the weekend. So the first one happened at 6 Aries Libra. So Mercury in Libra, Jupiter at 6 Aries. The second one is the retrograde of both of the planets. That happens on the 18th and 19th, and that happens across the 4 degrees Aries Libra axis. And then the third is the 11th and 12th of October, where both of those planets, Mercury and Jupiter, will be just at 1 degree. So when I think about aspects, when I'm teaching astrology, I think it's really important to think, okay, what do Mercury and Jupiter bring to the table as a planetary pair? Just as 2 planetary bodies, what are their archetypes? What is their relationship? So Mercury and Jupiter already are very complementary, yet very opposite to each other. We can think of some archetypes with this, perhaps the guru and the skeptic, or the big picture ideas versus the data and the details. And so when Jupiter and Mercury come together, we're sort of invited to, can we bring some meaning to the data, or some symbolism to data or information? And when I think about Mercury and Jupiter as sort of a planetary pairing or a combined archetype, I often think it's very astrology. For me, it personifies astrology in the sense that astrology is very much about the data and the details and the technicalities of what the moving sky is. And then we have to distill all that sort of data and information and bring meaning to it for our lives and for our clients' lives. So in the next month or so, we get an opportunity to bring some of those ideas into our own lives, and in particular, the Libra and Aries axis of our own birth charts. So when we think about the Aries and Libra polarity, we need to sort of add that as a layer. And one of the things that always comes to mind for me when I think about Aries and Libra as a sort of a sign polarity is the we versus me dynamic. Libra in particular, can be a very relationship oriented sign, but there's also sort of three dynamics to a relationship, right? There's the two individuals involved, or maybe there's three or four depending, but you get the gist. There's the individuals involved as separate entities, and then there's the third entity that comes together when they form that relationship. So there's a kind of brings a lot of moving parts into it. And I often think about the idea of Libra and Aries, about what's good for the goose is good for the gander too. And I say that because sometimes Aries can be a little bit, I'm doing my own thing. And whereas Libra kind of goes, yeah, but I want us to do all of the things together. So it kind of, the goose and the gander kind of idea is about rebalancing where there might be imbalance, or perhaps bringing in the sense of equality back to a relationship. If things have become unbalanced or feeling unfair, or they need to be recalibrated in some way. Of course, it may not necessarily be a relationship issue that these three aspects will bring to you, but it might be your relationship to something else. It might be relationship to money, for instance, if those signs hold your second and eighth houses. Maybe it's a work and private life balance that you're trying to strike, or maybe it's more of your social life versus maybe what your group of friends want to do versus what you might like to do. So I think to kind of encapsulate, I guess, in a way, what these three oppositions can bring is the chance to be able to bring in new perspectives to the table, so you can deliberate on them, find places where you can compromise. It might prompt you to explore themes of what relationships mean, like how can you bridge that happy medium between togetherness, but also independence, alone time, and maybe some other points of interest that may be outside of the relationship. Because Mercury, any planet in Libra, is really kind of seeking a level of consensus. It's seeking cohesion. It's seeking that Libra, to me, just wants to smooth things over. It wants to avoid conflict, whereas Mercury is not a conflict type of planet, but it will pull apart the things that aren't quite right, or it wants to analyze things, which can sometimes be a barrier to smoothness. So these three aspects might be about agreeing to disagree on some matters, or letting some pieces of data or information just slide right through to the keeper. A cricket analogy there. I mean, that might also hold water to baseball fans or things. I'm not really sure, but I think you get the idea that sometimes you just have to oversee some of the data points, or the points that you could argue if you want. And I bring some of those ideas because of some of the other things that are happening astrologically as well. We've got Venus in Virgo. We now have Mars in that sort of pre-retrograde shadow, which also occurred as Mercury and Jupiter were forming this first opposition. So I think this weekend that we're currently in, or depending on when this video goes out, that we've just had, is going to bring a bit of, okay, this is what we're moving towards or moving with. It's going to bring a bit of an energy or an idea or an insight around that. But I do think a lot of these themes are about recalibrating balance, agreeing to disagree on some points of view or perspectives. And it makes me think a little bit, sometimes you've got to see the forest for the trees. There is this sort of a big picture dynamic here with Jupiter. It might mean, the idea of, I remember in my early 20s, I was really big on yoga. It was kind of my outlet at the time. and, really helped me understand Jupiter to practice yoga, in the sense that, yeah, you can kind of, get the details or the data or the concepts of yoga, shove your body into that pose and, get the stretch or the mobility that you're seeking. But if you can kind of bring in the breath, the spiritual side of the yoga, then you get that more flowy, cohesive, experiential connection that yoga brings, that is obviously through the body, but not always of the body. So I think sometimes, yeah, there may be some data points to hash out here, some argy-bargy or these kind of things that we may not agree on. But if you can keep that bigger picture in mind, then you will eventually sort of reach, that place, whether that is that perfect, sweet spot when you're practicing yoga. So I do think that there is this, it might also be if you have been too accommodating in a certain situation, or you have been sort of too willing to give up what you may want for what everybody else wants, then these aspects might be about you recalibrating that and thinking about, oh, well, actually, this is what I want, and I don't want to do that thing anymore. So that might be some of the tricky stuff, is being more clear. The idea of clear is kind, and figuring out, okay, well, these are the points I'm willing to compromise on, and these are the points that I'm not willing to compromise on. And so this might be that the to and fro and the rebalancing that takes place over the course of the next month. So for my money, I think it's the retrograde opposition, which is the second of the three, which happens on the 18th or the 19th, is probably going to be the more trickier one. But also the potential where maybe some kind of solution is arrived at, or maybe a plan gets put in action, but you still may not be sure exactly how it's going to play out, but at least you've got the steps to move forward. I say this because this second opposition happens very closely to Mercury making its cazimi conjunction with the Sun, that inferior conjunction. So the opposition with Jupiter is the 18th, 19th. By the 22nd, 23rd, we have that cazimi aspect, and the Sun's entrance into Libra as well. So that's a really, I think that's a real turning point, where Mercury hits the cazimi, then it goes into Virgo on the same day. So it's like, okay, we've explored the compromises, we've explored the negotiations. Then there's that real purification of Mercury with the cazimi, and then it goes into Virgo, where it can go, okay, here's the plan, here's what we're going to do, and taking those practical steps forward. So I think a solution can perhaps be arrived at, but it still may take a little while in order to move forward. And there's a few other aspects that I think are going to be quite helpful to Mercury as well. For example, the conjunction with Venus. That one happens on the 26th in all of the time zones. So there's a few other sort of surrounding astrology features that I think are going to be helpful. But I think particularly the first opposition and the second one are probably going to be the most tricky. And then the way out is the way through, particularly once Mercury hits Virgo and regains a little bit of strength. Obviously still combust, there's a few other little problems there, but it's better. It's momentum, it's improvement. And then, of course, once Mercury gets back into Libra and then makes the third conjunction on, the third opposition to Jupiter on the 11th and the 12th, that's when you can sort of, maybe figure out, like, did those agreements or negotiations or compromises work? Or an outcome or a solution can arrive. Jupiter is very good for solution finding, and Mercury and Libra can be very agreeable and find that something that works for everybody. So whatever deals, agreements, contracts, or negotiations that you're entering into as of this weekend will really have that potential to come about by sort of, mid-ish October, around the 11th and the 12th, when Mercury and Jupiter make their final opposition at 1 degree of Aries and Libra. So I hope that's helped you sort of think about what things are going to be up in the air for the next month or so, what things are going to be penduluming, whatever that word is, back and forth over the next month, that sort of oscillating, data details, but what's the meaning, what's the big picture behind all of this? And it may be really helpful to keep in mind that there will be sort of light at the end of the tunnel, with all the potential sort of confusion back and forth that is happening over the course of the next month. So if you've loved this video, it'd be great if you could hit the like button or subscribe, or what are all the other things you can do here on YouTube. And I'd also love to hear in the comments below, which houses is this happening for you, and how are you seeing it play out? As an example, it is the 5th and the 11th for me. And I only heard over this weekend that a concert that I'm meant to be attending on the day of the Mercury station, my friend is not sure whether they've bought the tickets to the right event. So they're chasing that up right now, which is just okay, I can see the astrology of that, and we'll see what happens. But either way, if we don't end up going to see the planned concert, I'm sure we'll find our own version of fun anyway. So stay tuned. Maybe I'll be seeing Kiss, maybe I won't be. Anyway, until next time, everyone, I hope you have a very gentle Mercury retrograde, as well as this Mars in the shadow. I think there's something behind that, and I'd love to hear a few of your thoughts and ideas on that as well. All right, everyone, until next time, I look forward to seeing you then. Okay, see you later.